Welcome into another episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I am Will Thomas, and for today's episode, we're going to be going through each team alphabetically, breaking down the position group that I am most excited to watch on each squad. So we're just going through one group for every single team, 16 position groups. Let's get after it. But real quick, if you have been enjoying all this college football preview content, all this SEC stuff, subscribe to me here and follow me on Twitter. It costs you nothing. I just feel your love, and it really is going to help us all get going, get fired up for when we kick off in August, because I'll have daily preview content here up until toe meets leather in the fall. So let's get straight into it here. Starting off with the Alabama Crimson Tide. The position group for them that I am most excited to watch is that secondary. It returns a crazy amount of talent because at corner, you get Zabian Brown back, who is your junior kind of leader in that room. Dijon Lee comes back for his sophomore season. He's 6'4", 204. He's a crazy specimen in that secondary, and he was freshman all SEC last year. They also bring in Carmelo O'Neal. He transfers over from Mercer, so he's coming there to add some more depth. But also Red Morgan is there. He's a junior. And Chuck McDonald is a redshirt freshman coming back for his second year. So both Morgan and McDonald are really going to be kind of, trying to break in for reps, trying to get more involved in that secondary. But those top three guys, mainly of Zabian Brown and Dijon Lee, are just lockdown corners, and they're some of the best playmakers in the DB wise in the SEC. And talking about the safety room too, they bring back Bray Hubbard, who is back for his senior season after being all SEC first team last fall. They also return Keon Sabb for his redshirt senior season, who started all 15 games this year for the Tide. And then Xavier Mincy is back. It's his junior season now. He's just been this blue chip guy who's been slowly developing. His recruitment was a massive story, and now he's kind of junior season, upperclassman, really ready to make a difference. So there's crazy amounts of experience in that safety room between Hubbard, Keon Sabb, and truthfully Xavier Mincy as well. And then just crazy levels of talent in that corner room where, Tuscaloosa is going to be a no-fly zone, man. It's going to be really hard to find open windows, open passing lanes against this Crimson Tide team this year. So as long as their run defense also elevates and takes a step forward, Bama's defense is going to be really hard to score on, really driven by that secondary. Moving on to the Arkansas Razorbacks, the group that I am most excited to watch in Fayetteville is pretty simple. It's their quarterback battle between KJ Jackson and AJ Hill. So KJ Jackson, he is a redshirt sophomore. He's 6'4", 223. And super quick, AJ Hill, he's 6'4", 234. So Arkansas loses Taylor Green, who is this athletic anomaly with how he was built. And they just have two more guys who fit the same profile. But starting off with KJ, like I said, redshirt sophomore. He was behind Talon last year. He got some action in a couple of games last year, only threw for 400 yards and 3 scores behind Talon Green. But he, just like Talon, is a freak athlete. And then AJ Hill, a redshirt freshman who comes over from Memphis with Ryan Silverfield. So he's already familiar with Silverfield as a coach. He was the number 5 overall quarterback as a recruit in his class. AJ Hill was a massive get for Memphis and Silverfield in that recruiting cycle. And now he's up with him to the SEC. The quarterback battle, it seems pretty close. I'd be surprised if it's not KJ Jackson, at least not this year. And then probably next year's because of how the sport is at this point. You'll see one of them transfer out to go start. I would assume it's KJ Jackson this year. But, you're going to see both guys probably play in most games. Right, just situationally, and at least early on, you're going to want to give whoever is a number 2 guy some run to see if he can go take that job. So that I'm just really intrigued to go watch that room for Arkansas because both guys I do believe have sky-high potential. Probably not this year for either of them, but just watching them both develop and play is going to be incredibly interesting. Then on to the Plains, the Auburn Tigers group I'm most excited to watch this year is that receiver room, and it's really because of the intriguing mix of transfers and returners. Starting off with their transfers, their top 3 guys are all coming over from USF with Alex Golesh. Jeremiah Coger is a sophomore who's 6'3", 209. He had almost 600 yards last year. Chaz Nimrod, a senior. He had almost 500 yards last year. He was banged up toward the second half of the year, but he started off at Tennessee before USF. Now he's back up, so he already has some SEC experience. And then Keyshawn Singleton, another junior who is 6'3". He had over 800 yards and 8 scores last year as well. And then guys who didn't transfer, but some true freshmen here actually too. First off, the returner in Duke Smith. He's coming back for his redshirt freshman. He showed up in just 4 games last year as a receiver and on special teams. But then some recruits they brought in. Brian Williams Jr. is 6'4", 190 from Orlando. He had over 500 yards and 7 scores as a senior in high school. But the one they're more excited about as a true freshman is Deshaun Spencer. He's 5'11", 165. So a little bit light, but he's a freshman. He'll be a slot guy. He had over 1,300 yards and 20 scores receiving last year in high school and 444 rushing yards and 5 more scores. So he's a really versatile chess piece kind of guy that I do believe that, Golesh is a really good offensive mind. So he'll be able to scheme him up, really get him involved in that offense, and be able to use his versatility to really complement those top three guys who are already familiar with Golish's playbook, with Byron Brown, their quarterback. So even though it's new for Auburn, they're not really new to each other. And because of that, I believe that the headliners of that Auburn receiver room are going to have a good, successful year. And the depth behind them is just really exciting young talent that I can't wait to see how they get implemented early on in their careers. Moving on now to the Florida Gators. The group I'm most excited to watch in Gainesville is their defensive line. Now, it's headlined really by the edge group because the D tackles, to be honest, it's not really great on paper. It's solid on paper, but the ceiling at the edge room is much higher. Starting off with Jaden Woods, who is their sophomore superstar. They had to fend off Texas for him in the portal to get him to come back, but he was freshman All-SEC, PFF All-Freshman team. He played in 12 games last year, had 3.5 sacks. He really is that unit's star. And they also bring in Emmanuel Oyebadejo, who is a transfer from Jacksonville State. He is 6'7", 303 pounds. He was first team CUSA last fall. He also has tons of proven production. And then behind those two guys at edge, they bring in KJ Ford, who is a true freshman. He was a 4-star out of Texas in last year's cycle. And then Cameron James is a senior. He's been there kind of developing. He had 3.5 sacks last year, a forced fumble. So he'll just be another contributor behind those stars all out coming off the edge. But then inside of D tackle, you have some decent names, but not a ton of proven dominance. Joseph Mbachu is back for his sophomore year. He had 11 tackles last year as a freshman. Brandon Bett is back for his redshirt junior year. He had a solid year. Really what he's most known for, though, was the spitting incident against USF that helped to move the Bulls to that upset win. But then DK Kalu comes in from Baylor. He is a redshirt junior, transferring in, had 10 tackles last year. And Jeremiah McLeod is a sophomore who played in 11 games last year. Now the Gators also do have LJ McCray, who's a former 5-star kid out of Florida. He's coming off the edge too. He's been injured. He hasn't really been able to shine yet. I do believe he could break out this year as well. So Florida's D-line is my pick here, mainly because of the edge room and how deep and talented that edge room is. But at D-tackle, there is tons of room for one of those guys to really assume that alpha dog role in the middle of that D-line. Next up, the Georgia Bulldogs and Kirby Smart. The group I'm most excited to watch there is that running back room. This is one of the deepest, most talented running back rooms in the SEC. It's headlined by Nate Frazier, who's back now for his junior season, played in 14 games last year. He was all SEC third team from the coaches, had over 800 yards and 6 scores. But they also bring back Chauncey Bowens for his redshirt sophomore year. He was freshman all SEC last year. Showed up in all 12 games, had over 500 yards and 5 scores. They also transfer in Dante Dowdell from Kentucky. Now, he is a senior, and he's 6'2", 225, making him the biggest guy in that room. He will be the starter, but he can really be one of those. I mean, Nate Frazier is plenty enough a bruiser, but Dowdell can even add more of that to this running back room. He was very good for the Wildcats last year for what Kentucky was as an offense, and I believe he'll only elevate his game now in Athens this fall. There's some depth behind those guys. Dwight Phillips Jr. is back for his junior season. He showed up in 12 games last year just as a reserve, and Bo Walker is a sophomore. He played in 7 last year as a reserve, carried the ball 22 total times. Now moving on to the Kentucky Wildcats and Will Stein. I'm most excited to watch their wide receivers, because it kind of like what I said with Auburn, it's really littered with a combination of, a set of 3 returners and transfers. Starting off with some of their returners, DJ Miller. He's back for his sophomore year at 6'3", 208. He only had 13 catches last year, but he is lethal. He's incredibly talented. He was a 4-star in last year's cycle. Some injuries held him out, but he'll be back for that wide receiver 1 spot this year. They also bring in, they return Hardley Gilmore IV, who for his junior year. He played in 19 games over the last 2 years with the Wildcats, has over 400 yards. And as a true freshman, they bring in Kenny Darby, who they are really excited about there after the spring. He's 6'1", 180. He's a 4-star from Louisiana. He has had an elite spring. He's a big play guy, an explosive athlete. They're really pumped for what he can do. And the transfers that Will Stein brought in at receiver. Nick Anderson is a senior from LSU. Now, he's only played in 27 total games, and he's got 50 grabs for 900 yards and 12 scores. He's been battling injuries for a long time. Started off at Oklahoma. His freshman year there was great. Didn't play the next year with the Sooners. Didn't really get to play that much with LSU last year, but at 6'4", 205, he's a lethal athlete when he's right. Also, Shane Carr comes up from Southern Utah. He had over 1,300 catches last year. 1,300 yards last year and 10 touchdowns. He's a junior coming in at 6'2", 185. And then Jakaden Ferguson comes over from Arkansas. He's 6'2", 184 as a sophomore. Only played in 6 games, but he's also a former 4-star guy. So there's plenty of blue-chip talent there for Kentucky at receiver, and we'll kind of have to wait and see who elevates to be, those top 2 or 3 guys. But there's plenty of talent there for Kenny Minchey to throw to. Moving on to the LSU Tigers. I think it's their D line. This is one of the deepest, most crazy talented defensive lines I've ever seen on paper. At edge, Prince Yellen comes over with Lane from Ole Miss. He had 9 sacks last year, 13 TFLs, a superstar as a senior. Also, Jordan Ross. He comes over from Tennessee. He is 6'5", 246. So if you only let the sack and a half he got last year impact your outlook of him, that's wrong. Watch his tape. Look at him as an athlete. He is lethal coming off the edge, especially with Allen across from him. And then behind them, just Lamar Brown, who was a number 1 overall prospect in America last year, a 5-star guy, 6'4", 285 as a freshman. And Dylan Carpenter is back for his redshirt junior year. He had 10 tackles and 2 sacks last year. Then inside at D tackle, Deuce Gerald's just another elite prospect. He was the number 3 D tackle in the country last year. Georgia's all-time sack leader out of high school. They bring in Malik Blockton from Auburn, who had 4.5 TFLs last year, played in all 8 games for the Tigers. Richard Anderson, who was another 5-star recruit in last year's class. They recruited the D-line crazy well in this past cycle. He's coming in. Stephen Green comes over from Clemson as a transfer. He's a redshirt junior. And Dominic McKinley is a 6'6", 300-pound junior who returns. So the depth of talent that LSU has at defensive line is probably in Blake Baker's dreams every single night. And I believe that unit, that front seven, is going to be wreaking havoc. And they're going to need to, because I do have questions about LSU secondary, but this defensive line for LSU is going to be lethal if everybody stays healthy. Moving on now to Mississippi State. I'm most excited to watch their secondary. And it's led by Kelly Jones, right, who's the redshirt junior, sort of veteran lockdown corner. He was third-team All-SEC last year by coaches. He had a 76.8 cover grade last year. And I do believe that the depth behind him, it won't just be Kelly Jones and who else. I believe it'll be Kelly Jones and a litany of guys in that secondary, like Quentin Taylor, who comes over from Iowa State. He's a redshirt sophomore who played in 12 games last year, had 27 tackles and 2 TFLs and 5 pass breakups. They also bring in Jameer Grimsley, who comes over from Florida. He's a redshirt sophomore, former 4-star guy out of high school. He only played in 5 last year for the Gators, but he'll have a much bigger role this year in Starkville. And then Caleb Singleton comes over from Syracuse. He is a redshirt freshman who played in 8 games last year, racked up 16 tackles. And then at safety, Isaac Smith Jr. He was second-team All-SEC last year. He comes back now for his senior season at 6'2", 220. He's got tons of proven production. Marcus Williams is back for not back. He comes in from Rice for his redshirt senior season. He's 5'11", 200. He got plenty of reps at Rice, but obviously it's a big step up in competition. They also bring in Jardine Gilbert, who is a graduate coming over from LSU. He has plenty of numbers over his career. Hasn't really had a year where he's elevated, but he's got plenty of talent around him to not have to do that this year. And then Braylon Womack is a 5-star freshman that Jeff Lebby was able to grab. He is 6'1", 210, and he was the 2024 Gatorade Player of the Year in Mississippi. So on a Mississippi State roster, mainly on their defense, their offense is very talented, but defensively, State doesn't really have a ton of superstars, but they have a bunch of potential stars in that secondary. I believe it could be a lockdown unit there for the Bulldogs this fall in Starkville. Moving on to Missouri now. Running back is the easy choice, but I'm going with the unit that's going to help them the most in being a dominant running room, and that's their offensive line. And I say that because of how much stupid experience there is on this offensive line. Senior, redshirt senior, graduate, redshirt senior, redshirt senior. It's like the oldest O-line you've ever seen. But going from left to right, Caden Green's at left tackle. He's 6'5", 324. He only allowed 2 sacks last year after starting 11 games. Then at left guard, Tristan Wilson. He played in all 13 games last year, only allowed 2 pressures. He wasn't a starter, so he didn't have a ton of snaps, but only 2 pressures over that time is very impressive. Then at center, Dominic Giudice. He had 896 snaps last year at center, only allowed 1 sack and 1 quarterback hit. At right guard, Curtis Piegler. He only allowed 1 sack last year as well with over a 98% efficiency grade. And at right tackle, the only new face is Josh Atkins. He started all 12 last year for Arizona State. He comes over after having 791 snaps with the Sun Devils, only allowing 3 sacks. So not only is it one of the oldest offensive lines in the league, it's one of the most proven. Right, all those guys have great numbers from last season, so this Missouri offensive line should be very good at carving out holes for the running backs and being able to pass block for Austin Simmons. Moving to the Oklahoma Sooners, there were tons of groups I could have picked from on their defense, but I went with their linebacker room. And it's headlined by Owen Heineke, who they got back after an eligibility battle. But he is 6'1", 230. He's a redshirt senior. He was all SEC second team last year and was a staple for that defense last year and will be again this fall. With him is Kip Lewis, who is also a redshirt senior, started all 13 games last year, had 10.5 TFLs and 4 sacks. Then behind them, Reggie Powers III is a junior who saw action in all 13 games last year, 2.5 TFLs and a sack. Cole Sullivan, they bring him over from Michigan. He is a junior who played in 11 games last year for the Wolverines, had 5 TFLs, 2 sacks, and 3 picks for Sullivan, so he can really go get that ball. And then James Nesta is a redshirt sophomore. He played mainly on special teams last year, but did appear in all 13 games, so he has seen the field a good bit. This linebacker room for Oklahoma, obviously coached by Brent Venables, gives me a lot of hope, and they've all played a ton of football already. So I'm not worried about inexperience at all. I think that can be one of the stronger units on what should be an elite defense for the Sooners. The Ole Miss Rebels, this shouldn't be much of a surprise. It's the running back room. Obviously, Keewan Lacy is a given, but why I put them as my most excited group to watch is because of the depth. But obviously, leading off with Keewan Lacy, back for his junior year. Didn't transfer, stuck it out with Ole Miss. Just an absolute superstar, arguably one of the top running backs in the country. Last year, he carried the ball over 300 times. That's not sustainable, but he won't have to do it again this year because of the depth. They bring in Mekhi Frazier from Michigan State for his junior season. He had over 500 yards and 2 scores last year. They also bring up Joshua Dye from Southern Utah, who carried the ball 295 times last year for over 1,800 yards and 28 scores. So ultra productive, but he also carried the ball a ton. But now between Lacy, Frazier, and Dye, they'll be able to split those carries, keep each guy healthier and more fresh. The depth behind those 3 guys, Shakai Mills-Knight is a redshirt freshman. He was a 4-star guy last year, originally from Canada, and then JT Lindsey is a freshman. Redshirt freshman. He comes over from LSU. So there's the running back room really does go 5 deep with capable guys, but those top 3 dudes of Lacy, Frazier, and Dye, I believe could form one of the top trios in the conference. The South Carolina Gamecocks, I am most excited to watch their wide receivers. The room is led by Nick Harbor, who is back for his senior year at 6'5", 242. He is just a game wrecker in mismatch. Nobody can cover him one-on-one. And they bring in Jaden Gibson to complement him. Now, Jaden Gibson, he is a redshirt senior. He's from Oklahoma. He hasn't played a game since 2023 because he's been injured. But in 2023, he averaged over 26 yards per catch. He's one of the most explosive, most dynamic, kind of like Nick Harbor, just uncoverable matchups because he's 6'5". So Nick Harbor and Jaden Gibson form an elite 1-2 if they're both healthy. And then with them, Nitro Tuggle comes over from Purdue for his junior year. He started off at Georgia, went to the Boilermakers. Now he's back in the SEC with Carolina. They return Mazeo Bennett, who is a junior, limited action last year, but he's a pretty good slot option. Donovan Murph is back for his sophomore year, more on the outside. He was one of the youngest players in the sport last year, and he's back. And so is Jaden Sellers for his sophomore year, the younger brother of Lenoris, who saw action in 7 games last year. So this Carolina receiver room, I believe they have way more help behind Nick Harbor than they did last year. So I think it can really elevate. I'm really pumped to see how they pan out this fall. The Tennessee Vols, also a receiver, is my pick for them. This could be one of the best receiver rooms in the SEC. Led by Mike Matthews, who's back for his junior year, former 5-star guy. He had over 800 yards last year. Radarius Jackson is a sophomore, showed up in 9 games last year. Braylon Staley is a redshirt sophomore. He was the SEC Freshman of the Year last year, started in all 13 games, had over 800 yards and 6 scores. And then TK Keys. He is a true freshman, 6'2", 195. He's a 5-star kid. They stole him from LSU in that recruiting process, and now he can be a day 1 contributor for them. Also, Travis Smith Jr. is in that room. He's a sophomore who only had 3 catches last year. And then Joakim Dotson is a redshirt freshman who is a former 4-star. But really, those top 4 guys, Matthews, Jackson, Staley, and Keys, I think they can dominate this year. Now, they're breaking in a new quarterback, is Tennessee. But in a Josh Heupel offense, I'm kind of always, I just have blind faith that the passing game is going to have some open windows behind that power running game. So I think this Tennessee receiver room, some of the most explosive athletes in the country, I'm really pumped to see how they play this year. For the Texas Longhorns, this was really hard for me because I love every single position group on this Longhorns team, but I went with running back. They pulled in, obviously, both Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers. Now, Raleek from Arizona State, he's 5'9", 191. He's more of your bowling ball type, and Smothers at 5'11", 185. He can also get physical, but he's much more, elusive, smaller. So they complement each other really, really well, Duke Brown and Smothers. But then behind those 2 guys, Derek Cooper, he was a 5-star kid out of high school. He's 6'1", 210 as a freshman. So as a true freshman, he's already the biggest guy in that room. Bigger than both Brown and Smothers. So he'll be a great addition to those 2 guys. And then behind those top 3, James Simon is a redshirt freshman who was against his 4-star 2 cycles ago. And Michael Terry, another redshirt freshman who is a 4-star kid, only appeared in 2 games last year. But those top 3 guys of Raleek Brown, Hollywood Smothers, and Derek Cooper are going to give defenses nightmares this fall. Moving on to the Texas A&M Aggies. Only 2 teams left here. But for A&M, it's their receivers. Like, just another receiving core for this fall. But they bring in Isaiah Horton from Alabama. He's such an important ad here. He's 6'4", 208 as a graduate. And why it's so important to me that they brought him in is because he complements Mario Craver so well. Horton can be that big-bodied outside guy, while Mario Craver, who had almost 1,000 yards last year, can be that speedster in the slot. So those two guys complement each other so very well. And then Ashton Bethel-Roman, he is back for his redshirt sophomore year, had over 500 yards and 5 scores last season. And then some younger guys behind them. Aaron Gregory is a freshman who's a four-star from Augusta, Georgia. TK Norman is a redshirt freshman who only had 3 catches last year. And Terry Bussey, he is a former 5-star kid. He's a junior this year. He really hasn't broken out yet. Could this be the year where you get, what you thought you were getting in Terry as a 5-star to complement Horton, Craver, and Bethel-Roman? If they do, and Marcel Reed takes a step as a passer, that's a scary, scary passing offense there. And then finally, the Vanderbilt Commodores. I'm most excited to watch their running back room. It's led once again by Cedric Alexander, who is back for his senior year. He only had 500 yards last year, but that's because Diego Pavia was taking most of the rushing yards. He can be a 1,000-yard guy. And then MK Young is behind him. He's also a senior. He's their home run hitter. Right? He had over 9 yards per carry last season. He's really east to west, getting up the field, where Alexander is more right down your face, run you over. And then behind those guys is Evan Hampton, who is a true freshman from Kentucky. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year in that state last year. He's 6'2", 215, and he had 1,900 rushing yards and 28 scores as a senior. So you have the 1-2 punch of Alexander and MK Young, and then Evan Hampton can be a really versatile third piece there to help round out that running back room. So that'll do it. That is the position group that I am most excited to watch for each SEC team. And then once again, if you have been enjoying all this football content, all these SEC previews, just subscribe to me here and follow me on Twitter. I'm doing it every single day until we kick off. So thank you so much for watching this episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I've been Will Thomas, and I will see you next time.